In today's conversation on the MarTech Memo, we discuss the future of neurotechnology, the challenges that marketers are facing in the age of AI, and offer advice for entrepreneurs navigating this rapidly evolving landscape. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the MarTech Memo, where we go beyond the surface level discussions in marketing hype with MarTech and SaaS thought leaders. Today, I'm joined by Jay Brooks. Jay is the founder and CEO of GlassView, which are the inventors of the emotional intelligence engine powered by Cogwear, which are a clinical grade neuroscience company spun out of UPenn Medicine. Thanks so much for joining me today, Jay.
Thanks for having me, Marty.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to this conversation today. And when you started GlassView, you were always trying to solve for mapping consumer subconscious reaction to ads in order to better understand why they make the decisions that they do. Was that the primary reason, or did it evolve as a result of a different approach? I seem to remember you shared like a story of how the sort of the evolution came together for you.
Yeah, sure. To answer it succinctly, no, it did not start there at all.
Okay.
We launched GlassView in 2014 when video advertising was still nascent. You didn't have folks, on their iPhone, on the subway, watching videos. But that proliferated, it took off. And what I saw when we launched was this opportunity to harness the power of video. We said a picture is worth 1,000 words, video is worth 1,000,000. And so, really taking what had been a sort of overlay in media planning and advertising planning, which was the online video, and really amplifying it to its maximum potential using all the existing optimization tools like click-through rate, completion rate, frequency being one of the most underutilized metrics. But I saw, within 5 or 6 years, video proliferated, and so did the agencies delivering online video to brands and clients. And so I knew that the space was getting crowded, with also the advent of major players like the Trade Desk and DV360 owned by Google, developing all the infrastructure and the pipes. The pipes were there. The optimization levers were all there and sort of maxed out by all the players. And so we were reaching this sort of plateau of any differentiator an agency could offer. At the same time, this is a little bit circuitous, but it goes into this story. 2018, 2019, life was good. I was planning getting married and, had just run a marathon and 5 half marathons and was running my business and, launching offices nationally and internationally. And I felt this sort of tingle on the left side of my body and some like pins and needles that wouldn't go away. And then also my neck started to get stiff and I knew something was wrong. So I consulted with my physician, my primary care physician at first, who told me, "You're fine. Just go get a massage down in Chinatown. I got a guy for you. You'll be okay." And luckily, I did not listen to him. I insisted on getting an MRI, and this was like Sunday in mid-June 2018. And I found an MRI office that was open on a Sunday. It was just being staffed by a technician. The doctor wasn't there. It was a Sunday. And so the technician's like, yeah, get in the MRI machine. We're gonna, do the deal, and doctor's not here, and whatever. We'll have results for you in a week or two.
Yeah.
Well, got through with the MRI, and the technician was like, "Can you please come have a seat over here in the waiting room? And by the way, the doctor wants to call you."
Which is never a feedback you want, right?
No, but also I felt somewhat vindicated because I knew something was going on. Sat down, the technician handed me the phone. The doctor said, "Look, I'm about to board a flight right now, but I had to call you from the airport. I got the readout. You have something called a syrinx in your spine. A lot of people have them. They can be small, they can be large. What it is basically is this fluid-filled sort of cyst in your spine that can disrupt spinal cord regulation, neuro communication to the rest of your body, to your sensory system, and even to your motor neuron system." And so you definitely want to get this looked at, and go see a neurologist right away. And so I said, okay. And I said, can you tell me how big mine is? He said, probably like on a scale of 1 to 10, a 7 or an 8. So it's there, it's sizable. And I said, and then he told me it was from like C4 to T2, and that meant nothing to me at the time.
Right.
Well, he said the most important thing is you need to get this, like get it. We just found it. Now you need to get a baseline. You need to find out, is this thing growing rapidly, or has it been there for a long time, and is it stable? So got in with a neurologist that very next day at Weill Cornell, and went through the stuff. He pretty much confirmed the same thing. He said this could be a big deal, or it could be something that we watch and manage. And by the way, if it continues to grow, there is the risk of paralysis. And oh, by the way, don't look at Google right now until we start figuring things out. Of course, I had to look at Google,
right?
And all the survivability rates and the chance to survive to 40. I mean, all the stats were just terrifying. So, but I listened to their guidance, and ended up getting married, and just started going to get an MRI every 6 months. And some days I would have tingles, other days not so much. But learned that this thing for me was going to be stable, and it's kind of something we treat. But in the meantime, getting back to our topic, it made me obsessed with the human brain, and obsessed with advances in neurotech, neuroscience, and then ultimately in neuromarketing. I realized that through conversations I had at the Mayo Clinic, which I went to get treated there, and at MIT Media Labs and Harvard, there was this intersection of neuroscience and even with marketing, and that the more data we had, the more we understood human thought, human emotion, and even we could get down to being able to predict Alzheimer's early, as long as you have sophisticated enough neurotech deployed early enough. So, had all these conversations, and this group, one group in particular, kept coming to the fore. And that was a group out of UPenn Medicine, led by Dr. Michael Platt, who heads the neuroscience department, a division there, and also is the head of Wharton Neuroscience. And he's created this sort of world's first wearable clinical grade EEG device, which is technologically sophisticated enough to detect early onset Alzheimer's, and is FDA pending approval for that very use case. Can also tell if people are feeling happy or sad, or something as nuanced as nostalgic or empathetic. And because he's at Wharton as well, he sits at this intersection of medicine, consumer psychology, and business. I contacted him. I took his course, an executive education class in neuroscience at Wharton. I think I did okay. I think I got a B or a C, and and we were able to sort of co-create a partnership opportunity between his firm and GlassView, where GlassView invested in Cogwear, and we secured the commercial rights to use Cogwear in marketing, sort of into perpetuity. And so, I knew this was going to be a differentiator for GlassView.
For sure.
What surprised me was how big, how ready the market was for it. Going back to this, we plateaued in terms of the infrastructure, the pipes, and the optimization levers that we're all using to optimize to. What's next? And we got so great at optimizing toward behavior that we lost the human in our business. And so thinking about what made advertising fun back in its heyday in the 1960s era of Mad Men, or in the David Ogilvy days where creative really mattered, we wanted to bring that back to advertising in the 21st century, not abandon measurement altogether, but maybe bring in new measurement that actually mattered, and maybe was more responsible for 95% of consumer decisions, more so than clicks. So that's really the emphasis of where we started, the emphasis of the change that was made, that was forged from my own life experience, and kind of where we're heading today.
It's so fascinating, and I love what you guys are doing, because it's getting back to those days when they were really thinking more about the consumer and the emotional aspect of what drove consumer behavior, right? And we've gotten so, with the advent of the internet and clicks and banners and all this, it's been just a mind-numbing experience to try and just quantify what exactly leads in consumers to make decisions, instead of actually getting back to that emotional intelligence and why people are actually making decisions, and being able to capture that in a way with neuroscience is just, it's a game changer. Tell us a little bit, about how GlassView actually does capture those neurometrics. I think, that's fascinating to me.
Sure. So Cogwear itself has an organic audience of, I think it's like 20,000 people now, where they work with doctors' offices, they work across sports teams, professional and non. We're working with business leaders, understanding if a team has that psychological safety, if they're a good congruent team working well together. And you can see that through a phenomenon called neurosynchrony, where you start to see that people's brain waves start to move in sync if they're moving, if they're jiving. And so across myriad sectors, we've got this organic audience base that if a client comes to us and their target audience is wide enough, there's a chance that we'll be able to serve to the Cogwear organic audience. They all have software on their iPhones and laptops where we can timestamp, we see what they're looking at in real time. So you get down to the second by second analysis of neurometric reactions to the consumption of media. And we can use that to understand, did this work in a National Geographic environment, or is it better suited, on the pages of Vogue magazine, or should this be a lean back environment on Netflix at night? And so getting the context right, getting the media right, getting the frequency right. People really respond very well to this until the third time they see it in a week. And then the fourth time you present it to them that same week, fatigue spikes and impulse gauge goes down. So you're showing agitation and you're showing fatigue. So understanding
that's amazing.
From a neurometric level, how media is critical to your campaign success, how context matters, how frequency matters, and then creative. Is this the right color? Is this the right lead character? Is this the right accent? So, everything from media all the way down to creative, we have, so many variables that we can control for that allow for a positive neurometric response and serving to people something that is helpful to them, not distraction. Something we say at GlassView is that brands, we can stop competing for people's attention and let's start earning it. And we don't have to compete anymore to matter. All of this, every brand that works with GlassView is fueling brain research, which will help people with paralysis, will help people with, mental health issues. As neurotech advances, the implications are really staggering. So I for one have a lot more value and purpose in what I do. We've always said in advertising, we're not saving lives here.
Right.
Maybe we kind of are now.
Maybe you are. One of the things that you spoke to that I hadn't really contemplated, like the fact of where is the best place to place the media, like media placement so much based on that cognitive neuroscientific response, but also are they testing it? You mentioned creative, colors. How does that all play from a brand perspective when they come to, GlassView? What are their initial objectives? From a creative standpoint, from media placement standpoint? Walk me through that process a little bit, because I'm really curious.
Yeah, sure. And it really all depends on this phenomenon I was talking about earlier called neurosynchrony. And so the more synchronous is, the more that your brainwaves start to move in tandem. You, from as few as 12 people, might be able to predict how millions of people will respond. If it's very asynchronous, and you have neurometrics that are all over the board, then the message is not clear, the reaction to it is very disparate, and so you get lots of different groups, not just one cohort, and you may need upwards of 500 people to get statistical stability. So once we get that stat sig, we are able to then optimize toward the media, toward the placement, toward the frequency, towards the time of day, all the normal levers that we can use in advertising to optimize those neurometrics that get you to your goal. And the question I hear you asking now is how much of that is prescriptive? How much from the brand are you hearing? Is your team taking on, well, we want to try this out, we want to try this out? And the answer is it's not terribly prescriptive. What we're finding, and we've learned a lot in our 3 years of deployment.
I'm just curious.
we used to think that let's sit around a boardroom, let's think about all the possible neurometric reactions that can come from this. Let's maximize joy. And when we maximize joy, that's going to maximize customer lifetime value and happiness. And then that's a dangerous game. What we learned is to run the campaign, keep the North Star, and we're trying to steer clients much more towards customer lifetime value over quick conversions. So if we can get clients on board who co-create that strategy with us, turn the dial towards customer lifetime value, then reverse engineer and look back and see what neurometrics were driving that really positive, long-lasting neurometric feel where they want to become a customer and you're going to keep them long-term. And so that's where really where we're trying to get folks to think, rather than treating audience as a commodity where you'll get a win at any cost, even sacrificing the relationship. We want to turn that on its head and think about the connection we have between brand and consumer. Let's put that paramount and know that everything will flow downstream from there. So it's a long-winded way of saying we're trying to maximize customer lifetime value. We reverse engineer the neurometrics that get us there, and then we do more of that.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's just an incredible tool and product, and really taking, marketing, media, advertising into such a new stratosphere of how we really gauge success and how we measure that. What were some of the unexpected findings you uncovered as a result of this journey to build GlassView and the emotional intelligence?
I never realized how much tactical execution is needed to build a business. I thought if you have a really good idea, the market is just going to come knocking on your door. Just create an ad and just get it out in the marketplace, and it's all going to come. So that was sort of the lesson I learned, back in the teens, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. Just pounding the pavement. And then, as we launched Neuro, it was the same thing. I was ready for it. I knew that we had to really then turn our attention. We got this great idea. We forged a partnership with UPenn Medicine and Cogwear, and now we've got this incredible existing panel and neurometrics that are flowing in. And so got that underway, got the first few campaigns piloted, learned a lot about not trying to overly prescribe what success would look like, but letting the neurometrics guide our decisions. And now it's all back to execution. So I'm committed to being on the road, evangelizing this thing like never before. But it feels so different now, because I really do feel like we as a company are contributing to humanity at this point. And that may sound grandiose, but I don't. I've seen what the future looks like in 5 years and 10 years, and I know that we're making a difference here, which is just it's terribly motivating.
Like what's coming, you kind of talk about the next 5 to 10 years, but like, what is it right now you're most excited about that you guys are developing and tracking?
I'm so looking forward to seeing the positive benefits of this upcoming sort of BCI mind machine merge. It's going to start first with glasses and augmented reality, and I think people are so busy, right? They're just so busy with everything going on. Laptops, internet, Zoom, everything, all these technologies were supposed to give us our time back, and it just increased our workload. I know now with advances in AI, and not only LLM, but like Jan LeCun's, formerly of Meta, now with his own startup, his worldview AIs, I know that a lot of our mundane tasks will be taken care of.
Yeah.
And I've seen firsthand that, with the advent of more technology, if people feel displaced, they get creative. Like the very existence of goat yoga is an example of that. Like we will figure out a way as a species to be creative, to draw a community together. And I know in my heart of hearts that AI and the hardware that gets us closer to this sort of mind-machine merge will only make that pace more rapid. More specifically, with things like Meta Glass, and we have these display that helps you remember the last time I saw you, Marty, and you've got a birthday coming up, and the last conversation we had was XYZ. Oh, and don't forget you owe Marty XYZ. That's all coming. And then the reminders that it helps
Wow.
us, to incorporate it into our daily. And maybe that reminder is breathe. We can sense now that your
Yeah.
biometrics are agitated, your neurometrics are off. You need a 30-minute break. Go, like we're turning your computer off. Go breathe. I know that to its sort of basic, most simple benefit, that means that a businesswoman or a businessman is now going to come home from work with a little bit more energy and cognitive wherewithal to connect with their children. Like I know that's coming. And then with this sort of mind-machine merge where neurometrics get, and neurotech gets closer to actual, brain implementation, we are going to have this, this proliferation, this increase of human intelligence that no one is expecting. AI is getting 1,000 times smarter every year. Well, guess what? Humans are going to benefit from that. And so this futurist, Ray Kurzweil, says already right now, if a thought enters your head, you don't know really where that thought comes from. And as machine gets closer to mind and it's powered by neuro, that's going to be even more true. And it's going to be powered by the input of humanity and of all the machines on Earth. So we all, same as machine learning, when one computer learns something, all computers on that terminal know it. That's going to be true on a humanity level as well. And to be at that intersection of the mind-machine merge is, I don't know that advertising will look this way in 9 years, but I absolutely know that where we sit is going to be in high demand, and I'm just so excited to be part of that.
The one thing that comes to mind is the ethical use of this, because there's just so many challenges with that and how things are deployed and the importance of the ethics of it as well.
To that point, I would say society has never been more lonely, afraid, drug dependent, suicidal, and we've hit a rock bottom in terms of ethics. I think we've hit a rock bottom in terms of being manipulated also. And one of the biggest surprises I've seen with neuro is that anytime we see creative that is so clearly, so transparent on trying to manipulate, change someone's behavior, it fails miserably at the long term and increasing connection. So I think if anything, with neuro measurement, we're going to start to see right now where we're already being exploited, and we're going to cut that out. When we're dealing with the brain, it's got to be held to HIPAA standards, not GDPR.
Right.
There has to be user consent. This thing, it needs to be read, not write, to start. Yeah. And at some point, maybe there will be a technology that, can encode the brain and it can help people that are willing to be participants, help them with health benefits. But at the moment, none of this is right. It's just read, not write. And so there are a list of about 12 other tenets that have to be absolutely implemented at scale and held to the highest standard for this thing to be utopian and not dystopian.
I was going to ask you, what are the three of the biggest challenges you see for marketers in the age of AI and media today in the next couple of years? I think you touched on a lot of them right there. What would be one other one that you can think of in a more immediate future within the next year or two that you've seen?
This may be a bit more mundane because I think anyone trying to use AI to exploit is going to learn the hard way that it just is not going to work long term. But I think that AI is a great tool. You can't take out the human from advertising.
No.
The guys who are going to get this right are the ones who realize this is just a super tool to make our work better, to make us more creative. And the ones who just say, "Oh, great, I can now put my feet up and just let AI take over," they're going to learn very quickly. It's not going to be long lasting.
You still need to have and understand that human intelligence, and I think that we've kind of lost that in some aspects when brands are trying to experiment with AI.
Big brands actually have a lot to protect, and probably are not going to be able to experiment as much as maybe an up and coming brand that an audience would have accepted AI generated content at least to start. But then I don't think you're ever going to get off the ground if you don't have that that connection element.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, that emotional connection to a brand has driven advertising since the beginning of time, when advertising was really, created. But one of the things also that you touched on that was really interesting to me is frequency, because frequency has always been one of those things in advertising that the more you hit someone, the more the more you're going to stay relevant to them. But there's that point of diminishing returns when is too much enough, right? And when do you start to lose consumers at that point?
Yeah, and diminishing returns can turn into negative returns. If you're, if you're a brand and you're seeing the 50th time on a channel in a day, there are people who will swear off your brand for forever. So what damage are you doing? And we knew that intuitively at one point. We knew that that brands that were on this sort of late night, classifieds part of the TV, like we knew what was happening. Like they were going for the quick wins. They were not building a brand, and it wasn't going to be like that. We know that.
Call now.
But at some point we forgot it, and I think that I think with the advent of online, there was this like tendency to make to almost commoditize human beings as just an entity that we needed results from. We just needed to pay. We needed the clicks. We needed the conversions. We needed the purchases, and I think I think we've sort of hit a bottom of sorts as an industry, and I think people are rightly skeptical at this point now. They don't want to be advertised at, at anymore, and it's now like folks are craving connection. Folks are craving, interpersonal connection, and then even more meaningful, values-based ideas about where they spend their money. And it goes even deeper. I think, with the frequency. And by the way, GlassView was guilty of this ourselves. With the advent of online, and with now trading desks that you can pull a seat up to, and then you can promote your brand anywhere in the world. There's a pretty telling sort of symmetry between what happened in advertising and what happened in financial services. If you go back to like the 60s, 70s, you had to call your broker, there was relationships, you got advice, it was based on fundamentals of the company, and you were steered in a direction, or there was some tangible human stuff there. And then with the advent of online trading and Charles Schwab in the 90s, everyone could pull up a seat and trade on their own. We got, everyone became an expert on technical analysis and high frequency trading. And
right.
I think that's where advertising has tried to move as well, but they forgot that we're actually dealing with people and emotion, not
right.
just ascending stock prices. And so if that market can be more binary, and maybe technical analysis can ultimately work, although I'm much more a disciple of fundamental analysis in the Buffett style. But anyway, I digress. If that can work in finance, I don't think it can work in advertising.
No.
And I think we've already tried it. So it's now time to return to human connection. Not do away with measurement altogether, but we've got to find better ways to measure. And I think that neurotech solves for that.
No, for sure. I've got two more questions for you. What advice would you give to innovators or entrepreneurs that are starting today with the rapidly changing landscape, as we talked about with AI?
Sure. I'm a one-trick pony, and I'm asked to coffee a lot to talk about entrepreneurship. I always say, whatever your idea is, if you think you're going to build the next, hat company, or the next, travel entity, or whatever it is, take whatever you think you're going to build for consumers, where millions of people are going to be your customers, B2Bify it.
Yeah.
Find someone who works for a major corporation. Go deliver what you think you can do. Create a case study, and now go sell that to other businesses. And so, if it's a hat company, maybe make logos and go for something that is sort of corporate focused. Because from that, I know if I make 1,000 phone calls, I'll get a dozen sales. I don't know if I create a hat company right now that millions of people are going to love my hat. So it may sound mundane, it may sound a bit boring, and that's not how every entrepreneur wants to build their business. That's fine, but that's how I have. I would also say, realize it's a slog. Realize that the idea is only it's like 1/100th of it. Like, ideas are a dime a dozen now. I used to be very guarded with what my plans were or ideas. Now I couldn't care less because I know it all comes down to execution. Elon Musk is so right about that. Patents are really useless. It's all about how you execute. The other thing I would say is that you've got to, especially in this increasingly changing world, you've got to be able to move on a dime and then create a long enough runway so that whatever you're trying to build has enough time to take off. And so I see a lot of founders right now, sort of enticed, seduced by the venture capital world, and they take on a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden they lose control of their baby, and they're answering to a group. And very rarely do I see groups get something off the ground. There's got to be like a central decision maker, a visionary who gets something off the ground. And then at some point, when you've got a lot to lose, you need more decisions to sort of maintain and protect what you built. But to get off the ground, you don't want decision by committee. And so, inviting money in early, you're going to get a decision by a committee, and you may not get the results you want.
Awesome. Thanks. That's great advice. It really is. Lastly, which metrics are you most focused on for improving at GlassView? You touched on something a little earlier, is that you're ready to go out on the road right now. What's driving that right now? What are the metrics, and what are you focused on right now for GlassView?
I've got this sort of business specific, sort of micro level stuff, and that's really about working with brands on strategy to improve that connection between their customer, to really improve customer lifetime value, and to find the neurometrics that get you there. Bigger picture, I would love to see more neurotech adoption. You've got Elon Musk with Neuralink. You have Sam Altman, who's invested in Merge, which is less invasive, sort of non-invasive competitor to Neuralink, which uses more EEG and MEG technology. I think it's going to be a combination of both. With Neuralink, which requires a surgery and a chip placed on your brain, you get really deep, rich, amazing information, but it's very, very local, and it's specific to that region of the brain. With something like EEG or MEG, non-invasive, you put the apparatus on your head. We've already got now thought to text on MEG. That's amazing. I would love to see neurotech continue to take off, proliferate, and then I would love to see this sort of merge between non-invasive and invasive to see how this sort of mind-machine merge transpires. And then ultimately, can you imagine someone putting a band on their head who's lost complete use of their legs and arms, and all of a sudden now they can operate robotics that gives them autonomy again, to help people move, to help people communicate, to help people see again when they couldn't. All of that is coming soon, and it's a lot quicker than we ever thought. I get out of bed every morning thinking about that sort of first, and then how are the business metrics that we're optimizing toward now helping us get to that future and being a meaningful part of the conversation.
Awesome. Listen, Jay, thanks so much. It was such a great time. Really enjoyed it. Look forward to staying in touch.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Marty, for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, Jay, have a good one.